Can you take me through a perfect day in the life of Hikaru Nakamura on a day of a big chess match?
Yeah,
Well, actually,
sure. You can, yeah, that's fine.
multiple days, right? We'll
Sure.
take one where it's a big chess match and one that's just like your representative average day.
A perfect chess day, although I cannot do this, it would start like the night before. I would get like 9 hours of sleep,
Mm.
like a consistent 9 hours, like say 12 a.m. to 9 a.m., for example. Let's just say the round starts at like 2 o'clock, and then 9 to say 12 o'clock, I do preparation, and then 12 to 1, I go eat lunch. And 1 to 2, I just nap or I walk or I do something completely unrelated to it. That would be the perfect day.
When are you doing everything except the preparation? Are you thinking about chess at all, or are you trying not to think about chess?
Trying not to think about chess. Definitely
And
not.
what do you do? Is there any tricks to that?
Well, I find that like if I go outside, I just try to hear like the birds, or I try to listen. It's one of those like meditation kind of things. It's like they always say when you meditate, you try to hear yourself breathing. It's like when you close your eyes, try to hear yourself breathing and just focus on that. So I do try to do things like that from time to time as well.
So, in terms of getting 9 hours of sleep, does that come difficult to you?
That almost never happens. I mean, there have been a couple times where it has happened, like in Norway specifically, but generally I don't sleep well during chess tournaments. I wish I did, but
But so we're talking about a perfect day. So sleep is really important. What about diet and stuff like that? You
yeah, I
try to.
think for a lot of people, they try to keep it light before the round. Actually, like I remember hearing the story from Peter Savitler some years back, a Russian GM, and he said that Kasparov would go and eat like a big steak right before the game, and he would be completely fine. But I think for most players, it's the exact opposite. You try to like eat like some snacks, like maybe some nuts, a few bars, things of this nature, or maybe just like maybe fish, something very light for lunch before the game, and then you probably eat a lot after the game. That's generally what you try to do. But I don't think there's any like specific diet that makes a huge difference. But everyone is different, of course.
So when you're actually at the board on that perfect day, how do you maintain focus for so many hours of classical chess? Like like you know what, like minute to minute, second to second. How are you able to maintain focus? Is there tricks to that? How difficult is that?
I think it really depends on the type of the game that you're playing. I think if it's a game that's very, very calm and very slow, where not a lot happens at the start, it's a lot easier because you're not having to be super focused. Like your mind can drift and whatnot, and then at the critical moment you have to sort of zone in. So those are the easiest ones. I think generally when games are very complicated from the start, what you're doing is you're trying to not let your mind wander at all, because when games are complicated like that, one of the things that I've never been very good at is my mind does wander, and you're always like, I'm always worrying about the next move. It's like, is this a blunder? What's going on? Like what am I going to do? So you're trying, I think, very much to block out the noise. I think that's actually the hardest thing, is also because, like, I can say this, when I've played Magnus before, there have been times when I've gotten winning positions against him. And in that moment when I have the winning position, very oftentimes my mind wanders like, okay, you're about to win this game. And you're like, okay, what happens after the game? You win this game, gain the rating points, all these different things, but you haven't actually won the game yet. And I think for a lot of players, that's the hardest thing, is when you get a winning position, your mind does drift. It drifts to like what happens after you've won the game, or what the outcome is.
So yeah, drifting into the future, and you should stay in the moment. You really should like hold on. And also, what is it? Yeah, probably getting excited about the win.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? What is it about that makes you worse at playing? So interesting. Like getting
Well, I think it's you get, it's like a nerve. It's nervous, but it's like you're too excited. I think you it's like you're waiting for it to end. You expect it to end, and then your opponent keeps defending, and you can make mistakes.
What about the flip side of that, where you start getting frustrated? Like, how do you try to recover from that kind of thing?
It's very difficult. I think for myself, I try to basically focus on it every single move. I just try, again, you try to block out the noise, no matter which direction it's going in. So I try as best I can. I mean, sometimes I'm very poor at it. Like I just don't do a good job blocking out the noise at all. But I think generally I try to think, okay, just make this next move. Make your opponent have to find the best moves, and just keep the game going no matter what. Just keep it going.
By the way, what's a long day of classical chess? What's that look like?
It's pretty brutal. I mean, it would be something like, okay, so the game starts at 2 o'clock. So you've done all this other stuff. The game probably goes from like 2 to 7, for example, or maybe 2 to 8, 5, 6 hours. Probably you eat dinner for an hour or so, maybe I'll go clear my head for 30 minutes, and then immediately it's right back to studying for a couple of hours.
Are you reviewing previous games, or you already
Generally, you're just moving on to the next game. That's what you're doing.
and trying to, no matter what happened, put that behind you.
Yes.
Win or lose or draw. Okay, so
and that's also why there's another question a lot of people wonder, which is why don't I play more of these classical tournaments? And sort of it gets back to the literally don't care sort of stuff. But when I'm going to play in tournaments, I want to be able to give it my best shot. And if I don't feel that I can, I'm not going to play. Which is why I play here and there, but I do balance my schedule very carefully, because I'm not just going to go and play a tournament simply because. If I don't feel that I can put in the work, it's not the right thing to do. Also because I'm taking away a spot from somebody else who probably will be putting in the work, who will want to compete in that event. And so when I look at the candidates, or a lot of people said, well, why is he playing there? Like, okay, qualified, but he's not going to take it seriously. But I did give it everything I had in that tournament. And I always will, as much as I can. If I can't do that, then I'm just not going to play.
So what about a perfect day in the life of Hikaru when you're not doing
a perfect day? A perfect day would be something along the lines of I get up very early at like 3-4 o'clock in the morning, drive an hour away, and go climb mountains. That's the perfect day. Out into the mountains. So, do you mean a normal
Yeah, perfectly productive normal day.
Oh, perfectly productive. Okay, so perfectly productive would be along the lines of I wake up at like 7:30 to 8 o'clock. Probably I watch either Bloomberg or CNBC for 30 minutes to an hour, and then watch the markets for maybe an hour or two, look at certain things that are going on.
You really care about investing?
I do follow it quite closely, yeah. I follow the markets very closely, closer than I should, but yes.
For personal reasons, or do you comment on it? Like, for personal investing reasons, or for like philosophical understanding what's going on in the world reasons?
It's sort of everything. I think, first of all, obviously I'm interested in investing. I have been for many, many years. I've done investing trading for at least a decade now. So like I am very interested on that level. I'm also quite interested as well, because when you see the policy that's being dictated, like you look in the last 6 months specifically, you see the Fed policy around things like interest rates, unemployment, things of this nature. It is something that interests me also, because I do invest in real estate aside from the stock market. So therefore, I'm always keeping an eye on these sorts of things, and always looking. And as a better example, like I'm looking for trends. So if we go back to, I think it was I could have the year wrong. It was 2015 or 2016. There was a pattern that I found that on the Fed minutes that came out, I believe 2/2/15. I think it's on the third Wednesday of every month. That the gold ETFs and ETNs would actually go up. Not every single Wednesday of the month that the minutes came out. So I would follow things like that. Now, of course, I wasn't like trading huge volume, but I found a trend there. Of course, it stopped working at a certain point. But those are the sorts of things that they just interest me. Even if it's not something that I'm doing to make a living, trying to spot those trends, it's always been something that has fascinated me.
One Reddit said that you shorted Tesla some time ago. Do you regret doing so?
Well, when I did those plays, that was small amounts of money, and that was only via puts. That was where I would buy puts or put spreads on it. So it wasn't something where I was straight shorting. I would never actually do that because it's not worth the risk, and I don't want to ever be in a situation where I have to think about those sorts of things. And I think a better example is there was a period in 2016, actually, shortly before the candidates, when I actually was in oil. I had a long position in oil, and this is when oil completely crashed. It went very, I don't think it went below, did it go below 30 even? It went very low, and of course the Saudis were not cutting, they were not, I think they were they cutting or not cutting production? But anyway, there was a period in 2016 where I had a big long position in one of the 3X oil ETFs, and it kept going down day after day after day. And then of course, right near the bottom, I finally couldn't take it anymore. I took a loss, and that really it was very difficult dealing with that, the stress every day, seeing those losses. And after that, I kind of decided I would never put myself in such a situation again. And so that's why I don't do shorting. And then separately, and I think I posted a reply to this comment, but in 2021, as Tesla started going up, I actually started selling puts. And I did quite well off of that. So it's sort of play both sides, never become hard set with your conviction, where you refuse, this is this is just like it has to go down, or like it has to go up. Just sure you have to be willing to adapt.
Do you think shorting should be legal? Do you think it's ethical? Like to me, I don't know
Mhm.
much about investing, but I feel like it feels wrong. Now I know if something is overinflated, it's good for there to be an opposing force to like balance it or something like that.
Right.
But it just feels like in our current modern internet world, I think Tesla, I vaguely saw somewhere that's like the most shorted stock like ever.
Hmm.
And so that incentivizes a lot of the publication of misinformation about it. Like it just feels like the incentives are wrong, not when we look at the markets, but at the future of human civilization perspective. It just feels like shorting is somehow wrong. But maybe I'm misunderstanding the broader picture of markets.
Well, I actually try not to do that. I almost only take long positions
Yeah,
specifically because I feel like you're at betting like on the world collapsing. I feel like morally I don't want to be in
yeah.
that I don't want to have that viewpoint. I think that sort of is another thing that I've noticed. Like I've been very lucky. I've traveled a lot. I've met a lot of famous people, and the one thing that I've noticed is like a lot of the people who are the most successful, they're the ones who are very optimistic. No matter what is
Yep.
happening day to day, they remain very optimistic about the future of where things are going. So I try not to end up in that situation. I think as far as like shorting specifically, the real danger to me is that anybody can now invest. And I feel like actually some of these apps like Robinhood, they go out of their way to try and make it seem like it's this fun game. Like I've seen people where you place a trade and it gives you like these stickers or these pop-ups like of confetti, and it's like, wait a second, what's going on here with the whole game? Like people are sort of they're going after the wrong thing. So I don't think shorting like will be banned, but I think it's very dangerous that everybody has access to being able to do things like that.
So according to Reddit on the topic of Tesla, you have trouble admitting when you make a mistake. Is that true?
No, that's generally not true. Actually, I think that
Wait, Reddit is not 100% accurate and truthful in its representation of a character? That's fascinating.
No, I think the thing that I've learned is I'm obviously very good at chess, but that doesn't automatically mean that I'm a genius in everything else. And I feel like that's another thing actually that I really admire about Magnus is that he is the world champion, he's the best player, but he does not automatically believe that translates to every area of life. I feel like with some other world champions, they think that they're great no matter what they do. And that's not like intentionally trying to be like rude, but I do feel like there's certain people who feel like that. Like anything they say is right and they are the authority. When in reality, like we are the authorities when it comes to chess. Like we know chess the best, we are the experts, but that doesn't automatically mean we're geniuses in everything else.
That said, I think you said somewhere, it could have been on the C Squared podcast, that I forget if it's chess or streaming that taught you to generalize to various, like you feel like you're able to do other things now. Was that streaming?
I don't know if that's specifically streaming, but I think streaming has taught me a lot about sort of life and also how to run a business, honestly. Like I have read a lot of business books, and one of the things with streaming is that when you start out it's like this very small thing. It's just you, maybe you have a couple of people who help you along the way, but as it becomes bigger and bigger, if there's a boom, you suddenly start having to hire employees. You're basically running this business. And like for me, I've learned a lot about that because one of there was this book that I read some years back. I think it was by Mary Buffett. It was on Warren Buffett and how like he tries to be hands off. Like when he buys these companies, it's hands off. Management stays the same. You don't do anything. And I try to do things kind of the same way where like I try to be hands off. There are a couple of people around me. I leave a lot of the general day to day decisions up to them. And then like things that are really important, obviously I'm involved in, but I try to do things like that. So streaming is you learn a lot along the way, and I think now having done that, there probably are several other potential careers that I could have if I really wanted to.